Hi everyone, and thank you for joining this afternoon session. So for approximately 20 minutes, we will be talking about how bad data could affect your business and how automation can improve the candidate experience. So firstly, we're going to talk about challenges around good quality data you may be currently facing. And then my colleague David will be explaining you how we might be able to help you with those issues and showcasing as well our tool called Capture. Very quick intro of myself because I've done it this morning. I've been at DaXtra for over a year now. I covered the whole European market. Prior to that, I've been working at different tech industry and including some job boards provider. David, would you like to introduce yourself as well quickly?
Hi there, yeah, guys. Good afternoon. Again, same intro as this morning. I've been with DaXtra for approaching 6 years, and I work alongside Yoan with the EMEA team. And again, with the same sort of format, I'll be presenting a bit of our solution in a few moments' time.
Cool. Thank you, David. Again, for those who have been with us already this morning, I apologize, but let me just reintroduce DaXtra quickly. So perhaps you don't know it, but we've been on the market for nearly 20 years. Our tech is based on artificial intelligence and more specifically around another buzzword, which is natural language processing, which basically means that we can understand CVs or job adverts as much as a human being would do. And also, in parallel to this, because we have globally more than 2,000 companies using our tech daily and speaking many different languages, not just English, right? We can learn using machine learning from the hundreds of millions of documents parsed and all the searches performed monthly by the recruiter. So basically, what you need to remember is we have a suite of software helping you to be more efficient and also to find the best talents in your internal database as well as your external sources. So on this page now, you can see a few logos of ATS CRM that we have already an integration with, but we currently integrate with more than 400 systems on the market. So if you can't see your logo, your ATS CRM on this page, there's absolutely no problem at all. We can definitely write an integration for you as we've been doing, as I said, for the past 20 years. So now I want us to reflect a bit on what are the different factors affecting the quality of your candidates' data. I'd say one of the more obvious factors is CV backlogs. Effectively, there are always CVs stuck in recruiters' inboxes for whatever the reason, even though now CRM and ATS allow us to quickly upload the candidate by either a simple drag and drop or sending the CV to a dedicated email address. But yet, the question is, do we always do it? I think you know the answer. It's quite simple, is no, we don't, because we are only human, right? Another point is inconsistencies. You know that already, but choosing a CRM is a crucial choice as it's central to everything you do. But still, there are inconsistencies due to different methods the data are loaded into it. Each system communicating with it has its own parsing system integrated. And obviously, an integration with your CRM had to be done prior to that. And sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good. And as a result, the candidate gets lost for multiple reasons. So I'd say it could be for bad status, wrong sources, added to the wrong shortlist, profile incomplete, and so on. And if I want to talk a bit further about the incomplete data, I'd say this is not only due to the tech and its integration in your CRM, but it can also be due to bad entry data because recruiters have been lazy, right, and didn't populate some mandatory fields, simply forgot about it, or did it so quickly because, for example, I don't know, they had to prepare for an important interview and they forgot to enter the key information on the records. But in the end, and you know it already, that will affect your matches when performing searches. Another important factor is skill coding. So here again, the demon is in the detail and there are multiple reasons for the skills being badly coded. The obvious one is to say, well, this has been badly entered because of the consultant, and that's all. But the question is why? So is that because the guy who skill code the Greek code has been lazy, or in rush? Or is that because myself, I have a perception of this candidate which is slightly different than your colleague who did it? That could also be a problem because of the native parser, which is lacking of taxonomy and precision. And David will explain you a bit further later on. But on the parser, what you need to know is often the words need to have the correct spelling in order to be detected by the algorithm, because if not, it requires manual validation by an admin person in order to be entered into your system. Another point is duplicate records. So this could be due to a human error, or again, if you have different systems talking to your CRM, ATS, perhaps they don't communicate each other very well, and as a result, you'll get duplicate records. In fact, majority of the systems are there. They don't have a holistic view on the CV in order to consider whether the records needs to be created or updated, because they only look at the name, surname, and email addresses. And now the very last point I want to highlight is how we handle exceptions. So all I mean here is that how do we know the flow of data coming either directly from your recruiters or the tech platforms such as multi-posters, job boards, website, and so on is accurate? We know that some CVs are challenging due to their format, layout, or just because they lack of information. And therefore, you need a centralized point and an admin person to check if the data are clean enough to be entered in your system. All right, so now I'm sure you think I've been talking too much, so I will hand it over to you, David.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Yoan. That's brilliant. Thanks for setting up those challenges. Again, hopefully they resonate, or at least some of them resonate with your current workflows. So similar style this morning, if you were with us, I'm going to take you through a demonstration of our solutions. Now, this workflow, which you can now see up on screen, unlike DaXtra Search, which we looked at this morning, which is front-facing with a user interface that recruiters log into, the idea of DaXtra Capture and our entire automation workflow is it's all behind the scenes. There's little to no recruiter interaction. It's just doing it in the background. But what I will do, just to show you a bit more than we often normally do, I'll actually take you behind the scenes of what's happening as these candidates get onto the database, which solve a lot of those challenges that Yoan's just run through. So here is the automation workflow diagram. Hopefully you can read that. Now you might well be sitting there thinking, look, our CRM already has CV parsing. Why do I need DaXtra Capture? Why do I need DaXtra's automation? Well, the point is that there is a lot more additional value that we can bring than a simple parsing engine. Not only does DaXtra Capture include our market-leading parsing engine, which obviously has the highest accuracy across the greatest number of languages, but it also does a lot more. It's an entire end-to-end automated solution or robotic administrator, which does all the heavy lifting in ensuring good, clean data enters your database. So I'll just touch on that a little bit more. So we have one workflow for all inbound sources. So as Yoan mentioned, you might have a multi-poster, you might have a website, you might subscribe to job boards. All of these might use one or two or three different parsing engines to get the data into the database. But with DaXtra, it's uniform. It all comes through one location. And that means it's consistency across all the data that you process, but also provides a better audit trail for reporting. It's one source of CV data. We dedupe the records. If you follow this workflow through, we dedupe the records with a far better accuracy and more thorough checks. So it's not just first name, last name, email address. We actually look at 15 different touch points on a CV, work histories, other information to find out if a candidate's a duplicate or not. And that's ensuring that you're not getting duplicate records on the database. Another crucial one was exception handling. So, CVs come in all different shapes and sizes. And what it might be worth is asking yourself right now, if you load a CV through from your multi-poster or you drag and drop it into your CRM and it's missing key bits of data or it's unextractable, it's in a format that can't be extracted, what happens? Where does the error message come up? Where's the feedback on that? Does it then fall on the recruiter? And if the recruiter, as Yoan said, is really busy making placements, working roles, and source has come up as blank, Are they always going to perfectly tick the right source, or will they just tick the top one because it's quicker, it's on the database, and that then affects your ROI reporting of job boards and affects the bad data? So the idea is to take out as much of the human element as possible. And then finally, before I actually jump in and show you a bit more, is we can also set up certain business rules. So it's not, as I said, it's not just CV parsing. We can filter out candidates if X, Y, and Z is present on their CV, if that's what you want. Maybe they don't have the right skill sets. Or we can apply a certain rebranded CV in a certain style if it's come through workflow A, B, or C. We can do other things, set default statuses, track the source. A good one that we set up the other day was if the extracted date of their current work or their latest work history does not equal present, set status to available in the CRM. That's just a snippet of what we can do. Effectively, if we can extract it and you've got a feel for it in your CRM, we can trigger that and have workflows trigger off the back of that. So how does this all work? Let me jump out of here again and jump into a quick demonstration. So if I load up, I've chosen Salesforce to try and keep a generic CRM here. Of course, you saw all the logos at the start that we integrate with. So whichever CRM or ATS you're using is absolutely fine. But in this example, we're just going to stick with Salesforce as I had to pick one. So I want to get this candidate, hopefully you can see this Word document, onto my database. Now, there's lots of ways that this could happen. It could come through a multi-poster. It could come through your website, all those different inbound sources, or in fact, any inbound source. In this example, I'm just going to email it to a mailbox, which will then load it on to the CRM. Before I do that, let's just make sure JSON does not exist. I might zoom in a little bit, make sure you guys can see it. Does not exist on Salesforce. That would defeat the object. Of course, in a live environment, you wouldn't have to do this because we will do the dedupe automatically. But for the demo, no JSON on the database. So all as a recruiter I would need to do in this example, again, lots of workflows to add the data, is send this on Word, PDF, doesn't matter. And I'm going to send it on to a mailbox we've set up. And that's it. That in a few seconds, this record will now be created on the database, tracked, coded, deduplicated, all the rest onto the system. But as it goes through, let's now take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. So again, I stress this is not a recruiter's interface. This is something your administrator would log into from time to time to check on the status of CVs. Okay, so the different colors here are the different categories, or some of the different categories a CV might come through. Now, I'm not going to spend time going through each and every one of these, but I'll try and give you a quick overview. And of course, please do reach out if you have any questions. So the majority of all CVs, the vast majority, 95% of all CVs will come through this green section, and that requires no manual intervention. So it's the majority of your CVs going through, either being successfully deduplicated and updated or created as a brand new record. But what about those exceptions that we touched on? What if there's missing mandatory fields? What if the source was missing and that's a mandatory field on your CRM? What if there was no contact information? Again, do you want that going straight onto your CRM without being checked? Because you then can't contact those candidates. So what we do, if there's any reason that it needs manual validation, again, a very small percentage, we would flag that up. We'd put the brakes on. Let's not add it to the CRM yet. An alert can be sent to the administrator. Maybe you check it a couple of times a day, maybe a couple of times a week, just to see, okay, these couple of CVs got held back because it's missing X, Y, and Z. And then you can manually validate it at that point. Takes it away from the recruiter's task, automates the vast majority, but that small corridor of CVs that can then be alerted to an administrator to validate. One last thing to highlight here before we actually go into what's happening with that CV is fail to load category here. So, again, the internet isn't always the most reliable. What if there was a slight drop between your inputs and your CRM, a drop in connection? What happens now if you green flag a candidate with your multi-poster and then the connection drops at that point in time? Where does that CV end up? Do you get alerted that that's happened? Well, we do. And we would say, right, this one CV that came through, couldn't load onto the system for XYZ reason. We hold it here in the waiting area. And when the connection's up and running, you can just click resubmit and it'll work through those additional categories. So it's ensuring no candidates are getting lost. You've got that audit trail. You know exactly what's happening for every single CV that comes in on the business. Let's now jump in to successfully loaded, because that's where Jason Bourne, the CV I just pushed through, will have appeared. And again, don't worry too much about the detail here. What I'm showing you now is what happened behind the scenes when we extracted that CV. So you can see here on the left-hand side, here is the CV in unstructured format. The different colors just relate to different sections of the CV. What is important to you is what we then structure and populate on the right-hand side. This is what goes into your database. So name and contact details, that's pretty standard as parsing goes. Got a couple of options here, which we can look at another time, but just wanted to show you work experience. How good is your current parser at extracting start date, end date, company name, job title, position type, all this information, dates and description. See, all of this rich data is coming out of the CV. We're reading that and structuring it and populating it for every single one into your system. Contract, permanent. Same for education, slightly different fields, start dates, end dates, school names, etc., all extracting and populating. But what I did want to just spend a little bit of time on here is the skills. Now, it's quite interesting, and it's so interesting how these things change over time. If you were in our morning session, we were sort of advising that you don't need to skill code candidates anymore because of our advanced search system. We're sort of coding them in real time as you run your searches and machine learning from that to provide a more accurate search. And I would actually stand by that. I don't think you need codes necessarily to search for candidates, but recently, over the last sort of 12 months, really, automation has become even more and more popular. And for automation to work successfully, you need to have that good blanket of structured data, personas, if you will, of those candidates. And what better way to do that than to code the candidates to populate that data so that your systems, your candidate engagement tools, your automation solutions know who those candidates are, how to categorize them, and what steps to take next. So why I wanted to touch a little bit more on this is, as Yoan mentioned, again, you might be sitting there thinking, well, the CRM codes our candidates, or we do it manually. So a couple of challenges there, in my opinion, is if you're doing it manually, different humans have different opinions of what makes a good candidate. So it won't be consistent coding. And also it brings in human error. CVs will get missed. It might be 5:30 on a Friday. Now that pubs are open, I'll code them Monday morning. And then it gets forgotten because you're busy Monday morning. So, and unless you're coding absolutely every candidate, they're going to get missed because of your workflows will be based off the back of that. So that's why I would say don't do it manually. You might then be saying, well, our CRM already does the coding. Great. Well, it might have different levels of functionality when it's coding. So for example, some would just say, see a word, code a word. If it's got the word French on their CV, even if it was a GCSE from 20 years ago and they've never spoken it since, well, it says French on their CV, code them up as French. Not very helpful when you're categorizing your candidates. Or maybe it's a little bit more intelligent, but it might actually code candidates with multiple terms, even though they all mean the same thing. So like we saw from this morning's demo, when I typed in software developer, there was about 20 or 30 expansions to that. So what if it was the other way around? They've written it in multiple different ways, and you end up with multiple codes that all mean the same thing. So that's where we differ. We solve the challenge of inconsistencies by automating it. But then if we come onto the normalization, what we do is, and this is client by client, you choose how you want these customizations to work. It's not set in stone. And in this example, we've got the word, if I click on a skill on the left-hand side, it will highlight the one on the right-hand side. So if I click C++, it highlights C++. But then if we look at these other terms here, if you can see them, there's J2EE here, Java, EJB, which is Enterprise Java Beans, JSP. These terms might not mean something to all of you, but effectively they're all variations of Java. So you might decide, again, it's your decision, to map all of those to Java. And you can see if I click on J2EE, it highlights the Java. If I come off that again and now click on EJB, it highlights Java. So all of these are mapping to that term, and you can set this hierarchy in your system to normalize these terms to a parent term in your database. And then finally, the scoring, and then I'll quickly sum up what we've looked at today. We weight the skills as well. So it's not just see a word, code a word. It's right. How much experience do they have using Java? And we can actually see, if we look at their current work history, which is all of this blue section here, start date 2001. So for at least the last 20 years, they've been a Java architect. They've been using EJB, JSP, JMS, etc., etc. So we've read that automatically and gone, right, this person's got in total over their entire CV over 22 years of experience with Java, and therefore we're giving that almost a maximum weight, which is 97%. So that means we cut out the irrelevant ones. If they did have that example of I studied French as a GCSE, then that would we would understand that, but we would score that 20%, 10%, something like that. Whereas the more relevant codes get scored a lot higher. And therefore you can define a threshold to say, look, only code candidates that have a score of 50% or above, totally up to you. We would customize that for your deployment. And that means you're getting that reliable data back into your database. So enough of the back end here. Let's just quickly jump back to Salesforce, run that search for that email address again. There we go. JSON's now been created in the CRM. And remember, that whole middle bit would never be seen by any recruiter. They would just forward on that CV, green flag in their multi-poster. A candidate comes through the website and bang, into the CRM they go with all the skills, with all the employment history, with all the work history, with the original CV, with the styled CV, following all of your business workflows to give you that reliable data you can trust. So to wrap up, just jump back to the presentation here, summarize like we did in the first session, what we've just taken a look at. So with this system, it allows you to take control. You have one inbound workflow for all candidate CVs, leaving one audit trail for all the process data. And that also means you get consistent CV parsing. Every single CV gets parsed the same way, coded the same way, styled the same way. We've got our advanced deduplication, which looks at more than just the basic fields. This ensures that no duplicate records are going to be created on your database. Clean data profiles. With our accurate multilingual parsing, we're ensuring that you're getting all the data you need, not just the name and email address, not just this and that. It's everything, the entire profile of the candidate from that record. And also, as we've just touched on in detail, how we code those candidates automatically and reliably and accurately. Didn't touch on this too much. We sort of spoke about it, but we can ensure the candidates follow your business rules. So that means they're getting tracked, so you can report on ROI. We are filtering out based on certain business workflows. We're auto shortlisting to the right lists, all done automatically. You tell the system how you want it to work based on X, Y, and Z, and it follows suit. CV styling, again, we didn't touch on this today, but it's part of our automation. So as those CVs are coming through, deduplicating, tracking, coding, populating, shortlisting, we can also style at exactly the same time. So as soon as you load up that profile, you've got a CV ready to send out to the hiring manager. And last one, we've got 1 minute left, and then we'll leave you there. All of what you've seen enables further automation. It's such a hot topic at the moment of all these automation workflows that you can add into your CRM. And none of them really work unless you've got that good blanket of data that they feed from. So, like I said, categorizing the data, knowing their correct contact details, making sure there's not duplicates, so you're not emailing the same candidate twice and impacting your brand, categorizing them with the right skills so they follow the right workflows based on their persona. So if you use any of those solutions, and in fact, if you do anything out of your CRM, you need the right data in there, and Capture just makes sure it happens all automatically with minimal to no interaction from the recruiters. So right on time. If you've got any questions, please let us know. If you want to reach out to us separately, please do that. I think our LinkedIn details are in the chat, and we can catch up later on.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Take care.